Politicians behaving badly is nothing new, and if it seems like lately the behavior has gotten out of control, just remember that today's leaders were not the first to rock the political world with their actions.
From a gay affair to blocking a bridge to sexting a minor, these are some of the political scandals that shocked New York and New Jersey politics, and this is how the news covered them.
We begin in 2004 when New Jersey Governor Jim McGreevey made a surprising announcement revealing he had a gay affair and would be stepping down from office.
The governor, who is married with 2 children, made the stunning announcement just a short time ago in Trenton. He admits to having a relationship with another man.
The State House in Trenton has been a scene of tears and turmoil all day.
Now, we begin our coverage with Fox 5's Linda Schmidt, who is in Midtown right now. Linda?
That's right there, Lena. Rosanna. Well, I've got to tell you something. This rumor had actually been out there for quite a while, but nobody touched it. Number one, because they couldn't confirm it, and number two, because they figured it was the governor's own personal business. This was something between him and his wife, their own personal life. Especially if it didn't affect his job as governor, if it didn't impair his ability to do his job, then it wasn't anybody else's business. Now, at this point, we don't know this for sure. We're not sure about this. If it did impair his ability as governor, and if he did compromise New Jersey taxpayers, then that's a whole different story. But I want to stress here, we do not know that to be the case at this point. Now, the governor had a news conference about a half an hour ago, and this is what he had to say.
And so my truth is that I am a gay American. And I am blessed to live in the greatest nation, with a tradition of civil liberties, the greatest tradition of civil liberties in the world, and a country which provides so much to its people. Shamefully, I engaged in an adult consensual affair with another man, which violates my bonds of matrimony. It was wrong, it was foolish, it was inexcusable. And for this, I ask the forgiveness and the grace of my wife. I have decided the right course of action is to resign. To facilitate a responsible transition, my resignation will be effective on November 15th of this year.
Now, a short time ago, we caught up with commuters here at Penn Station who were heading to New Jersey residents. Now, they were shocked, but here's what else they had to say.
It's a foolish reason to resign.
You think you should stay in office?
Why not? That shouldn't make a difference to anybody.
That's a good reason for resigning, in my opinion.
Do you think he should step down over something like that?
Not over something like that, no. I don't think over something like that in and of itself.
Think anybody should step down over something like that?
It's a whole new world out there today. Personally, no. I think it belongs on the other side.
And once again, Governor McGreevey's resignation takes effect November 15th of this year. That's the very latest from here. We're live tonight outside Penn Station.
In March of 2008, just 14 months into his tenure, New York Governor Eliot Spitzer resigned after being linked to a prostitution service.
Today's decision ends the legal cloud that has surrounded the former governor since his embarrassing downfall.
Fox 5's Andrea Day has reaction tonight. She is live on the Upper East Side. Andrea.
Yeah, Ernie and Derry, this had a lot of people out here wondering, how could this happen? Well, it all boils down to the fact that he may have spent $1,000 an hour, but the feds say he used his own cash.
And once they were satisfied that his money was his personal money, they were not going to go after him. They couldn't go after him. It would just be so wrong.
It played out like a made-for-TV movie. A tough governor disgraced in a hooker scandal, forced to resign, his wife by his side.
I am deeply sorry that I did not live up to what was expected of me.
In the end, Eliot Spitzer admitted paying for hookers, even setting up high-priced trysts in D.C. as client number 9. He's lived under a cloud ever since, but now at least one part is over. Federal prosecutors say he will not face criminal charges after they found no evidence the former governor used public cash to pay for sex. In a statement, Spitzer said, quote, I resigned my position as governor because I recognized that conduct was unworthy of an elected official. I once again apologize for my actions.
It's a tragic movie, especially for his family, especially for his children. Will he be able to recover? I think he will.
4 people pleaded guilty in the case, including Tanya Hollander, a booking agent for one of the escort services. And now her attorney is blasting the Fed's decision.
If she were to serve time in jail, based on all the circumstances here, especially with Mr. Spitzer not being charged, that would be a sad injustice.
And we've all been camped out here on Fifth Avenue outside of Spitzer's apartment. So far, no sign of the former governor.
After Spitzer resigned, David Paterson was sworn in as a new governor of New York. During his final year in office, Paterson faced allegations of soliciting and accepting free tickets and making false statements. He was fined $62,000 for accepting free Yankee tickets, but did not face perjury charges.
New York Congressman Anthony Weiner found himself at the center of not one, but multiple scandals involving sexually suggestive photos of himself.
Silda Spitzer stood by Elliott, and before her, Hillary by Bill. But today, Huma Abedin not only stood by her husband, she spoke up to defend him and say she forgives him for his inappropriate online exchanges with women, even as more incidents emerge.
I love him. I have forgiven him. I believe in him.
You know, God bless his wife for standing by him. I wouldn't.
I can only imagine how traumatic that is for her.
While many women told us they felt bad for Huma at today's press conference, Iona College political science professor Jeannie Zaino says having her there today was a strategic move by the Weiner campaign.
Campaign as well, but absolutely, the campaign knew, he knew that she had to be there, and she did everything she could today, and I think that's why the campaign, you know, he lives to fight another day. I think it's going to be.
A Quinnipiac University poll conducted just last week found Weiner a close second to City Council Speaker Christine Quinn among female voters. At the time, pollsters attributed that largely to the thinking, if Huma can forgive him, why shouldn't the public? But Zaino questions whether that mindset can sustain yet another round of scandal, and voters we spoke to agreed.
She's making a decision for her own relationship, not for the public.
I think he had more chances than he warrants.
I think any type of forgiveness, latitude that people were willing to gift to him in this case has been squandered.
Sonia Osorio is the president of the New York City chapter of the National Organization for Women, which has endorsed Quinn, and tonight is calling for Weiner to drop out of the race.
I think it just demonstrates that Anthony Weiner is unfit for office. If we didn't know that before, we certainly know it now.
Stacey Delicat, Fox 5 News.
The pictures exploded in a front-page story in the New York Post. Anthony Weiner once again in underwear selfies on Twitter, but this time one of them shows him visibly aroused in bed with his 4-year-old son next to him. Clinical psychologist Dr. Megan Fleming says at the very least it's inappropriate.
He's got a really bad habit, and that habit is sort of a learned behavior that is giving him some positive reinforcement, or he wouldn't do it, but he's using it despite the fact he's got all these negative consequences, and that's really what makes it problematic.
People we talked to on the streets also had strong feelings about his son being in the picture.
He's a pig. He's a pig. What can you say? I mean, you got your child, 4 years old? Who does that?
I think that's like really unexcusable, and to now involve your child in it, that's not okay.
The first sexting scandal cost him his seat in Congress in 2011. 2 years later, he was a strong contender in the mayoral race until another scandal erupted. But this third time around, Anthony Weiner could be knocked out for good, says political consultant Hank Scheinkoff.
The voters are very forgiving people, but this is too much. This is 3 incidents. He's gone through rehabilitation. They wouldn't let him run for mayor last time because the numbers tanked. It's time for him to find a different line of work.
Weiner's wife, Huma Abedin, is a top aide to Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. She issued a statement that says, "After long, painful consideration and work on my marriage, I have made the decision to separate from my husband." Abedin may be avoiding more than political damage, says Dr. Fleming.
It really can impact sense of self, self-esteem, you know, how or why am I not enough? You know, why is he having to go outside of the marriage to sort of get sexual needs met? And I think that sort of is really just, you know, disconcerting and really might rattle even her own self-confidence.
He was once a rising star on the New York political landscape, but now a federal judge here has ruled that former Congressman Anthony Weiner will do hard time in a federal prison.
Are you shocked by the verdict, Congressman?
Anthony Weiner had nothing to say after he walked out of federal court with a prison cell now a future certainty. Inside the courtroom, he cried and reached several times for the tissue box as he made a case for leniency. But it had no effect on Judge Denise Cote. She sentenced him to 21 months in a federal prison for transmitting obscene materials to a minor. Criminal defense attorney Peter Frankel tells me, more often than not, a defendant's celebrity status is a curse, not a blessing.
Judge Cote did, in fact, in sentencing him, indicate that because he is a person of high profile and because it was a case that is in the news, that was a significant factor for her. So she took the opportunity to try to deter other people from this sort of behavior.
Prosecutors say the punishment fits the crime and that while Weiner was not a predator on the prowl for underage girls, he was fully aware the victim was 15 years old when asking her to perform sex acts on live video platforms. She had even told him she was going for her learner's permit. The government investigation also revealed Weiner was actively engaged in sexual communications with 19 other women at the time, but they were not minors. Because the activity was with a minor across state lines, it became a federal crime. He pleaded guilty last May.
This is basically a strict liability crime. So what that means is if you commit this crime, then essentially, just by the act of texting or emailing, you're essentially guilty.
Weiner was ordered to begin his 21-month sentence on November 6. After that, he'll be on supervised release for 3 years, and his name will be placed on the sex offender registry.
We all know traffic in and out of the area can be a nightmare, but what if the traffic nightmare was intentionally created as political payback? Here's what happened in 2013 during the infamous Bridgegate scandal.
I knew nothing about the lane realignments before they happened. I knew nothing about the lane realignments as they were happening.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie adamantly denying he had any involvement in Bridgegate. The governor breaking his silence about the scandal in a radio interview with Ask the Governor. This just hours after former Port Authority executive David Wildstein testified in federal court, saying Christie knew about the lane closures. Wildstein, who pled guilty to orchestrating the traffic nightmare with the hopes of getting a lighter sentence, said he and former Christie ally Bill Baroni bragged to the governor about the traffic as it was happening at a 9/11 memorial in 2013.
Did it have anything to do with it? The answer was no in January of 2014. It's been no every day since. And there has been nothing that has been brought forward to prove anything to the contrary.
However, Wildstein told a different story on the stand. He said the lane closures were done to punish Fort Lee Mayor Mark Sokolich for not endorsing Christie's re-election bid. Wildstein also said Christie's deputy chief of staff, Bridget Kelly, told him, quote, "The governor is going to love this."
We'll see after the cross-examination, and you could have a better opportunity to evaluate in total what he has said. Right now you've had one side.
Christie confirmed he has not been called to testify, but wouldn't say if he thought the scandal had any effect on his failed presidential run.
If it were not for Bridgegate, do you think it would have been you on that stage last night facing Hillary Clinton?
Who knows? Who knows? You just don't know.
But do you think about it? You must think about it. Because you wanted this.
I think about a lot of things, Eric, but, it's not relevant.
Mr. Christie, you are a bully, and the days of you calling me a liar and destroying my life are over. The truth will be heard, and for the former governor, that truth will be unescapable, regardless of lucrative television deals or even future campaigns. I plan to make sure of that.
Bridget Ann Kelly, once a deputy chief of staff to former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, speaking after her sentencing at the federal courthouse in Newark, New Jersey.
These past 5.5 years have been full of some very, very difficult moments. But I want my children, my family, and my friends to know that I stood my ground because the truth does still matter.
Kelly and former Port Authority executive Bill Baroni were both found guilty of deliberately closing lanes on the George Washington Bridge for 4 days in September of 2013, which caused congestion that crippled traffic in Fort Lee, New Jersey. It's a scandal that became known as Bridgegate. The move was an apparent retaliation against the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey, who was not supporting then Governor Christie's re-election campaign. Kelly sent the email that made headlines saying, quote, "Time for traffic problems in Fort Lee." Kelly and Baroni were brought down by former Port Authority official David Wildstein. They allegedly worked with Wildstein on the lane closures, but Wildstein cut a plea deal with the feds in exchange for his testifying against Kelly and Baroni. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was never charged, but the scandal linked to his administration helped to tarnish his bid for the presidency in 2016.
You need to know that I will not remain quiet any longer. Legally, our fight lies in the hands of the 9 justices of the United States Supreme Court. I respect that process and anxiously await their decision.
From accusations of sexual harassment to bullying to underestimating the number of nursing home COVID deaths, an onslaught of scandals pushed Governor Andrew Cuomo to resign.
We want schools open. For most of 2020, this is how New York and the rest of the world saw Governor Andrew Cuomo. Strong leadership, navigating the Empire State through a devastating pandemic. He wrote a book on it, won an Emmy for the pandemic briefings. Then on December 13th last year, the first red flag. It came in the form of a tweet from a former aide, Lindsay Boylan, accusing her former boss of sexual harassment. She tweets and declines interviews. More than a month goes by when, on January 28th, a new scandal emerges. State Attorney General Letitia James releases a report on nursing homes during the pandemic, confirming the state undercounted nearly 4,000 nursing home residents killed by COVID-19, classifying them as hospital deaths only. About a week later, on February 10th, on a call with state lawmakers, Melissa DeRosa, the secretary to the governor, admits they withheld information on nursing homes because of a probe by the federal government, setting the nursing home scandal on full fire.
It threatens your livelihood if you don't lie for him.
As Cuomo tries to put out that fire, he makes a threatening phone call to Assemblymember Ron Kim.
For 10 minutes, berating me and yelling at me in front of my wife, in front of my kids, while I was about to bathe my kids, to a point where my wife was shaking.
Kim goes public, and a chain reaction of stories of bullying phone calls from the governor and his aides emerges. A week later, Lindsay Boylan appears again, this time a post on Medium, alleging inappropriate sexual advances, including the governor asking her if she wanted to play strip poker and an unsolicited kiss on the lips. Cuomo first tries to pick a federal judge who's a longtime ally to investigate him. Then he tries to pick a chief appeals judge he appointed. After intense back and forth with the state attorney general, Letitia James wins and is granted subpoena power and is able to call witnesses. The very next day, on March 1st, a third accuser, Anna Ruck, comes forward to allege a painfully uncomfortable encounter, an unwanted kiss, a moment that was photographed.
It was unintentional, and I truly and deeply apologize for it.
2 days later, Cuomo resumes his press briefings after a 7-day absence, saying he is sorry for making people feel uncomfortable, but denies ever touching anyone inappropriately. Upon hearing this, a current female staffer reportedly breaks down in front of her colleagues, saying she was aggressively groped by the governor late last year. The same week, on March 6, 2 more accusers come forward, both former staffers, including Anna Liss.
I never touched anyone inappropriately.
And by that weekend, calls for Cuomo's resignation start circulating in numbers.
The governor must resign.
Events entering the next week deep in his dilemma, with even more accusers and calls for resignation now running all the way up to the top Democratic leaders.
Given the circumstances, the best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to governing. And therefore, that's what I'll do.
Governor Andrew Cuomo will only hold that title for 13 more days. Then the state's 56th governor will cede power to Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. The governor's announcement came 1 week after Attorney General Letitia James released a report outlining his sexual harassment of 11 women, some of whom reacted after he spoke yesterday. His first accuser, Lindsay Boylan, said, "From the beginning, I simply asked that the governor stop his abusive behavior. It became abundantly clear he was unable to do that, instead attacking and blaming victims until the end. It is a tragedy that so many stood by and watched these abuses happen." Deborah Katz, the attorney for another accuser, Charlotte Bennett, said, The governor's decision to resign is a testament to the growing power of women's voices. It underscores that sexual harassment is no longer acceptable, no matter what office the harasser holds. In his address, the governor spoke specifically about one of the 11 women in the report identified only as Trooper Number 1. She accused Cuomo of, among other things, running his hand across her stomach, running his finger down her back, and kissing her on the cheek.
It was embarrassing to her, and it was disrespectful. It was a mistake, plain and simple. I want to personally apologize to her and her family.
Cuomo will leave office having overseen major infrastructure improvements like Moynihan Station, the 2nd Avenue subway, an overhauled LaGuardia Airport, and the bridge spanning Westchester and Rockland County that bears the name of his father Mario, himself a 3-term governor. Andrew Cuomo's longtime ally, President Joe Biden, said he respects his decision to resign.
But he's done a hell of a job. And, I mean, both on everything from access to voting to infrastructure, to a whole range of things. That's why it's so sad.
Mayor Bill de Blasio, who frequently clashed with Cuomo and himself has not ruled out a run for governor, tweeted, "Make no mistake, this is the result of survivors bravely telling their stories. It was past time for Andrew Cuomo to resign, and it's for the good of all New York."
It took less than a year for first-term Congressman George Santos to lose his position and be expelled from Congress.
Mobbed by reporters, the now former Congressman George Santos leaving Capitol Hill shortly after fellow lawmakers voted to expel him.
You guys gotta get out of my way.
Capitol Hill security quickly changing the locks on his office door in the House of Representatives and removing the plaque bearing his name. Outside his district office in Douglaston, Queens, voters echoing the sentiment in Washington, D.C.
Bye, George. Bye. Bye.
Good job, Congress. You finally did something right.
A House Ethics Committee report found the disgraced Republican lied about his background to get elected and cheated donors by using campaign money to pay for personal expenses like Botox, luxury clothing, and adult websites. Santos has also been indicted and pled not guilty to federal corruption charges.
At the end of the day, with overwhelming votes, we affirmed that code of ethics and expelled George Santos.
311 House lawmakers voted to remove Santos. Only 4 Republicans in leadership opted to keep him in power, including the new speaker. Santos's replacement will be determined by special election. Democrats are already considering candidates like former Congressman Tom Suozzi, who formerly held Santos's seat, State Senator Anna Kaplan, and Robert Zimmerman, who lost to Santos in a tight race.
We need candidates who've got some background in having run for office.
Republicans are currently interviewing about 25 candidates.
We've changed our vetting system is deeper, it's more thorough.
Do you have anything to say to your constituents?
Santos's downfall swift. He leaves less than a year after being elected to public office, about halfway through his 2-year term.
Our next scandal involves former New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez, who was sentenced to 11 years in prison on bribery and corruption charges. The ex-New Jersey senator pleading to the judge for mercy before being handed down that sentence.
All right, Fox 5's Morgan Mackay was inside the courtroom as it all went down. Morgan, what can you tell us?
Hey, Steve and Natasha. So this 11-year prison sentence is actually lower than the 15-year prison sentence that prosecutors were asking for. The judge telling former New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez, who was in tears, that he took into account his decades of public service and his age. Menendez is 71 years old. But the judge said despite all of this good that Menendez might have done, he also said, quote, somewhere along the way, and I don't know when it was, you lost your way, and working for the public good became working for your good. Now, Menendez was convicted last summer on 16 counts of bribery, extortion, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. He's the first U.S. senator in American history to be convicted of working as a foreign agent. In a 9-week-long trial, a jury found Menendez guilty of participating in a bribery scheme, acting as a foreign agent, and facing the interests of Egypt and Qatar in exchange for cash and gold bars. Menendez was in tears before the judge, referencing the more than 130 letters written in support of the former senator and the work he has accomplished during his decades in public service. His lawyer, who asked the judge for an 8-year prison sentence, spoke about Menendez's fall from grace, saying his nickname, Gold Bar Bob, will follow him for the rest of his life. But prosecutors said that Menendez was in a unique and powerful position, which made this breach of trust even more egregious. The judge also described the amount of evidence as overwhelming, saying somewhere along the way, Menendez became a corrupt politician. Menendez spoke briefly as he left court.
I am innocent, and I look forward to filing appeals on a whole host of issues. But let me just say this. This whole process has been nothing but a political witch hunt. Only in the Southern District of New York could prosecutors send the jury illegal evidence that violates the judge's order and the Constitution's speech and debate clause. Only in the SDNY could you embrace an FBI agent who was caught lying on the stand in order to make their case. Welcome to the Southern District of New York, the Wild West of political prosecutions. President Trump is right. This process is political and it's corrupted to the core.
Now, Menendez's co-defendant, Walhana, was sentenced to 8 years, and his other co-defendant, Fred Davies, was sentenced to 7 years. Now, Menendez's wife is also facing similar charges, and she is going to be facing trial in March. Reporting live, I'm Morgan McKay.
Our final political scandal involves New York's current mayor. In September of 2024, Mayor Eric Adams was indicted on 5 criminal charges.
Mayor Eric Adams' legal troubles began long before his first court appearance. According to the 5-count indictment against him, back in 2015, he established relationships with Turkish officials. Between 2016 and 2017, he traveled to the country 3 times, allegedly accepting pricey tickets and luxe hotel stays in exchange for influence back in New York City. The swanky upgrades and expensive favors lasted through 2020. In 2020, Adams allegedly solicited and received straw donations, which helped to circumvent the city's campaign finance rules. Fast forward to September of 2021, when the mayor allegedly put pressure on the FDNY to fast-track the opening of a new Turkish skyscraper on the east side, a building that wasn't up to code and failed inspection. It was November of 2023 when the feds ramped up their investigation, raiding the home of Adams' aide Brianna Suggs and seizing the mayor's electronic devices. In 2024, the FBI raided the home of more of his top advisors, including Winnie Greco. Fast forward to July of 2024, when the mayor is officially served grand jury subpoenas, and from that point forward, one aide after the next resigns, from the police commissioner to his chief counsel. In September, the federal indictment against the mayor is unsealed and he is indicted by a grand jury. The mayor has continuously denied any wrongdoing, and despite the growing chorus to resign, he still refuses.
I've done nothing wrong. Time will prove that. And people will look back on this moment and say, we're glad we gave this mayor the opportunity to do the work he's doing.
As the work week kicked off, Mayor Eric Adams dove into his work with public appearances, from a promotion and graduation ceremony at the sanitation department to an announcement on changes to and investments in New York's water supply. Adams was indicted on 5 federal criminal charges Friday, alleging he took bribes and illegal campaign contributions from foreign sources. This morning, Adams' lawyers asked a judge to dismiss the bribery charge, saying a gratuity is not the same as bribery.
Congressmen get upgrades. They get corner suites. They get better tables at restaurants. They get free appetizers. They have their iced tea filled up. That's just what happens.
Over the weekend, Adams' top advisor, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, was subpoenaed and had her cell phone taken away at JFK Airport as she returned home from a trip. Federal investigators also searched her home. The mayor spent the weekend making his appeal at churches across the city. As for the line between gratuity and bribery, we asked the mayor today about where he draws that line. This was his response. You've made the point before that government does work when, if you have relationships with your constituents and they bring things to your attention, that you go and It's your job to get those done.
Yes.
What would you say to members of your administration and including members of the police department about that relationship, whether there are boundaries in terms of what is exchanged in that relationship? Are there limits after which it starts looking bad?
I didn't get that. That was a little too complicated.
Part of that exchange of that relationship, for instance, are coffee or meals. What is the city's rule when it comes to when that relationship kind of tilts into something that the city might not look favorably upon, even though they're trying to gather information that's important to their constituents to act on?
I must be slow this morning because I still didn't get it.
And that was the news then.